Welcome to Cinema Chop Shop. Watch, chop, retrofit.
I'm pissed off, man.
Why?
Well, I was having some issues a week ago, last weekend, with my phone. I noticed it had a little water drop icon at the top. I was like, what the fuck? Because I haven't got my phone yet. And it was telling me that it detected moisture in the charging port. And there was no moisture in the charging port, but it kept telling me that, so I couldn't charge it. Long story short, I took it to the repair shop, and they replaced the charging port for me. And now it charges fine, but I have squat for coverage. Like, if I'm inside of a structure, I have no bars. And the battery's not holding up for anything. Like, it won't hold the charge all day. So now I'm going to take it back to the repair shop. But, of course, they're like, oh, we didn't do anything. We secure everything before, blah, blah, blah.
You made your phone wet.
I guess so. I'm just so fucking sexy and talking dirty all the time that my phone got wet.
But this isn't a tech support podcast.
No, it is not.
This is a movie podcast at Cinema Chop Shop. I'm your host, Shawn, and I'm joined today by Travisito.
Yeah, that's me. I showed up.
Nobody else wanted to come to work today.
I'm like Super Grover. I show up.
Yeah, you did, but no Lee. No Joey, because he had a previous engagement. And Todd, interestingly.
Todd was almost a no-call, no-show. If you had not texted him, would he have even replied? Would he have known?
He would have been at my house next week.
To
record.
At least Lee had the common courtesy to explain his reasoning for not being here this morning, well in advance of recording time, instead of after recording time.
Well, you know, good thing that we have the podcasters union, because if we didn't, those two guys would be out on their asses.
It's ironic that the topic for today is about workers, and they didn't show up.
I know, right?
It's not like this is their job, but still, come on, show some due diligence.
The name of the episode is literally Workers Unite.
Yep. I feel united.
So it's just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
So yeah, we're going to do union movies, labor movement movies.
Yeah.
Just something that we've never really talked about before, so I thought it would be an interesting topic.
I think it'll probably be our most communist movie episode to date.
Well, I think all of our films center around the United States.
True.
Labor unions, so we're not going to get too much into, but of course, if you ask my dad, it's a completely socialist, communist kind of sentiment to have a union in the first place.
Well, yeah, and it's a touchy subject to cover for a filmmaker because of the history of workers' rights in the United States and the aversion and the propaganda around communism. Like, the Red Scare was a real thing, and it affected movies that came out.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole blacklist thing. In the United States, the first union was recognized under U.S. labor law in 1935.
That is so late.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're coming off of the Industrial Revolution, you know, the Upton Sinclair type
which is like
stories of
which
horrible,
is like 1910, right?
So like late 1800s, early 1900s.
So it took a couple decades.
But you know, we had child labor, we had deplorable working conditions, unsafe workplaces, and so those kinds of barbaric settings kind of led to ultimately workers demanding rights and protections and stuff, not even above and beyond what we could typically consider a union thing, which is typically money,
right?
You know, just making sure we're paid what we're owed. But
back then, it was actually protecting their lives.
It was a life or death situation, exactly. As recently as 2022, the United States workforce labor membership is at 10.1%.
Labor membership. So 10.1% of American workers are
in a union,
have some sort of collective bargaining rights.
Right. In 1983, it was at 20%.
Okay.
So that's a huge decline.
It is.
Here's an interesting thing in preparing for this episode, though. The rising income inequality in the United States tracks with the decline in labor membership since its peak in the 1950s. So I have this graph that says essentially the share of income going to the top 10% was at its lowest when union membership was at its highest in the 1950s.
I'm sorry. All I was hearing was, look at this graph.
Look at this graph, right? So essentially, when we had the most number of people in unions in the 50s, is when the top 10% had the least amount of wealth. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So it correlates.
And so as union membership has declined up until today, that graph has gone down while the top 10% income has gone up. Directly, diametrically opposed graphs. The biggest argument I hear from people about unions of whether they're good or bad or whatever is that, well, if everyone was in a union, that's just going to drive the cost of goods up. That's going to make everything more expensive because all of these corporations and manufacturers are having to pay their people more money.
But that's a choice that the heads of those corporations are making.
And, you know, I can, if that were the case, then why do we echo back to the 1950s as the good old days? Why were we at our best in the 50s when our union membership was at its highest?
So when you say the good old days, it's usually pretty conservative people who are using that phrase.
Yeah,
right?
I use that in the...
And then there's the greatest generation label. But also, there was some really rough stuff going on in the 1950s and prior. But just as there are very harrowing times going on today, I think that a lot of these movies, you could set them in a post-millennium, in a 21st century setting, and a lot of the themes and the morals would still apply.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of the movies that we're going to talk about today, and unfortunately, we're not going to explore some of these in great detail because our two workers didn't show up today. But yes, those themes are prevalent, and that's why the movies themselves are still watchable today. You think about a classic like On the Waterfront. I mean, that is a labor movement, but it's also like a David versus Goliath kind of story of the little guy standing up for what's right.
The man lived by the jungle law of the docks. That's the tagline for On the Waterfront.
Nice. Other movies, you've got Hoffa, Blue Collar, which I'll mention. It was going to be Lee's movie.
One of Danny DeVito's few directorial features, Hoffa. I think he also did The War of the Roses with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner, but not very many.
Silkwood is one that I considered talking about today. It's
with
not
Meryl Streep,
yeah.
And who else?
I don't remember who else is in it,
Okay.
but it's not a true union or labor movement movie per se, but it does play a big part of it, of her being the squeaky wheel and ending up getting her untimely end, I guess, at the hands of unscrupulous company. Matawan, have you ever seen Matawan?
I have not.
That's one that I was reading about today.
It sounds like an apprentice in Star Wars.
It's about, it kind of plays into the movie we're about to talk about. It plays into the coal mines of West Virginia.
Ah, okay.
And what they had to go through back in the early days to unionize, again, for their own safety. But, I'm not going to say that I'm for or against unions because they do come with their own sets of problems. And a lot of these movies explore those as well, which is, you've got union leadership representing supposedly the will of the people.
Right. And isn't that one of the criticisms, is that the leadership always ends up being corrupt?
A lot of times that happens, yes.
But that's also one of the criticisms of a communist political system, is that on paper it looks great, everybody's doing fine, but you always end up with corruption at the top and no.
And you're always going to have, well, you mentioned trickle down. You're always going to have people that are disappointed and unhappy with the way things go, but that's just life. You mentioned trickle down. Trickle down economics is supposedly the reason why we shouldn't unionize, because we need the heads of the corporations to do well and be extremely profitable, and all of those profits and successes will trickle down to the rest of us.
But it doesn't happen.
But why do I keep seeing headlines about these corporations that are losing money, yet their CEOs are taking a $300 million bonus at the end of the year?
Yes.
So it's kind of hard to swallow that pill. At the same time, when you're trying to tell me that unions are just going to drive prices up.
It's also worth pointing out that
where we're recording from, is in the South. Excuse me. And currently, the South is a desert in terms of collective bargaining. There's not a lot of unions, not nearly as many as there used to be when the South had a strong industrial force.
Right. And you mentioned that as well. Unions aren't something that we hear a lot about today. And is it because they've just been bad-mouthed and driven to the fringes to the point where it's not as relevant a discussion? I remember as a kid, my dad was a truck driver through my whole childhood. And I remember a time, he was not a union person, and there were times when the truck drivers would go on strike, and my dad would still work through it, which was dangerous. When
He was a scab.
Yeah, I guess so, in a sense. But he had to put food on the table for his family. And, growing up in the 80s as I did, he was our primary breadwinner. It was not a dual income household like you see today. Mom had her jobs that she would do, but she was also raising 2 kids. So dad had to make that hard choice. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of people when it comes to making union decisions to join or not, which I guess is a good time to mention our feature segment that we're going to talk about today. Harlan County, USA, the great documentary, released in 1977. I see 76 a lot of places, but 77 is what I see. It's directed by Barbara Koppel,
Ted's sister.
Yeah. It won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. Of course, it is about the labor tensions in the coal mining industry. Director Barbara Koppel films a strike in rural Kentucky, Harlan. And after the coal miners at the Brookside mine join a union, the owners refuse the labor contract. Once the miners start to strike, the owners of the mine respond by hiring scabs to fill the jobs of the regular employees. The strike, which lasts more than a year, frequently becomes violent, with guns produced on both sides, and one miner is even killed in the conflict.
It's got a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which a couple of the movies we're talking about tonight have that, but that's not super common. Quick question. Harlan, Kentucky. Is this where the TV show Justified is set?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
All right, I'm back in.
This was your first time seeing the film, yes?
No, I saw it previously.
That's right.
At the recommendation of Knowles.
Yep.
Which, of course, he's going to rep those hillbillies. But I remember it being just stark and devastating.
Yeah. In the coal mining world, and Harlan is no exception, a lot of times you have these coal mining towns that are essentially owned by the corporation. The housing is provided by the corporation. And in some cases, the money is not truly U.S. currency, it's scrip.
Yeah, that's another thing that ends up being the downfall of these workers in the corrupt systems, is they get taken advantage of and paid in government money, or not government money, but company money that's only usable at the company store.
Right. So you've
where
got
prices are super inflated.
So you've got a racket, and it's in these impoverished communities, which I've been to Harlan, and it's better than it was then, but it's still, you can see the bones of what they were up against. There aren't a lot of opportunities outside of the coal mine.
Well, now you don't die in the coal mine, you die of meth.
Meth, right. Which I've done the driving tour through West Virginia, and I've passed through these towns where the mills have all closed, the mines have closed, and essentially you have people sitting on their front porch just methed out of their heads. And that's unfortunate, but
it really is.
That's the world we live in. Great documentary. I've watched some interviews with Barbara Koppel about how dangerous this film was to shoot, but it was one of those things where they said, we just got to do it. And she was young and dumb enough to...
Dangerous in terms of the locations and situations, or because of like agitators and being...
Yes to everything. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, yes to everything you just said. There were times when, the guns that you see in the documentary, she said that only scratches the surface to the number of guns that were present. She was told to carry a gun. She didn't want to, but they're like, no, you're going to carry a gun.
Right.
And that's how volatile the situation was. And, tying it into us in South Carolina, our electricity is provided by Duke Power.
Yep.
And Duke is who owned the company that owned the mill.
Oh, wow.
Owned the mine, rather. So when the union workers go up to New York to demonstrate at Wall Street, they're talking about Duke and don't buy stock in Duke.
Yeah.
And that's who they're referring to. It's the same company that provides our electricity that's powering this very podcast.
Yeah.
So it's kind of small world for us, at least. I mean, we're not too terribly far from Harlan, Kentucky, but interesting that the reach of that corporation still has relevance today.
I was a little bit disappointed in the overall lack of canaries in the movie. I was hoping for a lot more, like to see if they really work.
But you really get to see some of those. You don't call them. I wouldn't call them deplorable conditions because it's just what it is. But like the shots of the workers getting on the conveyor belt and just riding down into the mine in those tight quarters. I'm a wuss. I couldn't do that.
I imagine they just became numb to it.
Yeah.
Like maybe they were scared the first few times, but
You just got to do it. That's your job.
And I imagine like the young rookie comes along and he's all stressed out about it, and the old timers smack him in the back of the head and says, "Shut up, you're making us look bad."
One thing about the film that I'm always reminded of is the music. I mean,
Okay.
you're talking the backwoods bluegrass folk music that's these workers unite kind of songs that they sing to encourage the union and encourage the movement have their roots in the same kind of bluegrass music that we hear, because these are just common people and they're just making up these songs to kind of
Well, if you're
encourage
trying
everybody.
to express yourself, you write about what you know,
Yeah.
and what they knew was hard times.
Yeah. And some really fascinating characters in this documentary.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed about the women in the film.
If you like people watching, this is a good one.
Yeah, the women in the community, strong, hard women who don't take any shit from anybody.
Really the glue that's holding the community together.
One thing you don't get from the documentary is the sheriff, who kind of comes off as being ineffectual. He kind of plays the middle on camera. There are some behind the scenes interviews or footage rather that show that he was pro union. He was with the union, and he, for whatever reason, I guess he's doing a job. He's got to keep the peace ultimately, and that's his goal. On top of maintaining law and order. And so I can see why he has to kind of play both sides a little bit. But it was interesting to see that that's how he was portrayed in the documentary, even though they had footage where he kind of showed his true colors.
Well, I imagine for anybody who actually lived there that there was shades of gray too. Like, sure, maybe you might want the best for your neighbor, but you still have to do your job.
Well, and then also being a small town, everybody knows everybody. So there is no anonymity whatsoever when it comes to who you are. I mean, if you bust the picket line, they know who you are. And
Harlan County, you can't poop without everybody knowing what color it is.
The other note about the film for me is that if you want to see what a true villain looks like, that fucking foreman. What an asshole.
Indeed.
The guy just drives up with gun in hand, like just, I'm going to stir up some shit, folks. Get ready.
I do have an interesting fun fact about the movie. When filming began, the film was intended to be about the 1972 campaign by Arnold Miller for Miners for Democracy to unseat UMWA President Tony Boyle in the aftermath of Joseph Yablonsky's murder. However, the Harlan County strike began and caused the filmmakers to change their principal subject, with the campaign and murder becoming a secondary subject.
Right.
So it was just circumstantial that this thing kind of popped off while they were already there making a movie, which is pretty interesting.
Which is why we today everyone whips out their cell phone and
Mm-hmm.
takes video. You never know what's going to happen. You might get something good or bad.
But yeah, it's a recommend for sure. It's educational and just kind of interesting.
It is. It's a neat glimpse into a cause that someone believed in very strongly, and a fight, a struggle. But also, I think that what you have to remember as well, in this movie, this was 1973 when most of this was shot.
Filmed.
Boy, it looks like they are in the dark ages. And just remarkable.
It looks like the way they look in the movie I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
after the break.
Yeah. So interesting. You understand why they were fighting for what they were fighting for when you see it through that lens, that these guys were living an extremely meager existence at the hands of somebody who had total control over them.
And they had no choice.
No choice. I mean, what are you going to do? Not work? I mean, you're already poor enough as it is. You can't.
And don't have the means to go anywhere else or do anything else.
So, yeah, in that regard, Harlan County, USA, it is a document of a very depressing and strange part of our history.
Yeah, a chapter in American history that's not pretty, but needs to be remembered.
Yep, 100%. So, yes, if you've not seen it, check it out. Harlan County, USA is streamable on HBO Max or whatever it's called this week. Also, Criterion Collection, Criterion Channel, they show it all the time. So give it a look if you've not seen it.
So speaking of streaming services, this is an aside. Disney has started paying attention to zip codes. So I've been mooching off of my sister's Disney Plus account for a couple of years and keep getting kicked off. So I'm looking at what they have to offer, right? And so my lovely wife, Michelle, I'm messaging her throughout the day. And I say they've got Disney Plus and Hulu with ads for $10.99, or without ads for $19.99. And she says, sounds good. And I said, no, it's a either or situation. And her reply is Hulu. I'm like, well, I think you're still not really paying attention to what I'm asking you. But we eventually settled on no ads. So I have that to look forward to.
Good job. Modern conveniences.
First world.
First world problems, not the kind of problems that Harlan County, USA fought for. All right, that's going to wrap us up for the first half. We'll take a break, and we'll jump back in to talk about some other films. But not before we say, let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and get ourselves some
grapes of wrath.
Nice.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack. We promise to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, your sweet tooth. So visit our refreshment center now. Let's go.
All right, we're back. It's just the two of us.
Guess who's back?
It's just us.
You don't have to guess. I'll give you two guesses.
There's no roundup. That's it. There's very little to report from intermission. We're back. We're going to talk about the movies that we saw, but we're also going to mention the movies that our two esteemed guests had watched. Lee was going to watch Blue Collar.
From 1978, directed by Paul Schrader.
Yeah, we like Paul. Paul does good stuff. It stars Richard Pryor and Harvey Keitel. They are workers at a auto manufacturers, if I remember correctly. It's been a couple of months since I've seen it, but it is a good movie in that it shows you a lot of how unions work.
Okay.
There's a lot of scenes about the hierarchy within a union, and also the corruption within a union.
Gotcha.
Harvey and Richard hatch this scheme to steal from the union. They discover that there's money that's being misappropriated.
Okay.
And they say, well, if we steal it,
they can't say anything.
they can't say anything because it's illegal money.
Now, let me ask you, is this a comedy?
It's not.
Okay.
There's some things that are kind of funny a little bit, but it's not intended to be a comedy as you would associate with Richard Pryor.
Okay.
I like this movie. However, it does kind of fall apart at the end. The plot itself is geared towards driving a wedge between Richard Pryor and Harvey Keitel along racial lines.
Okay.
Richard Pryor gets a position within the union in terms of a higher position, a higher office, because he's playing ball with the people that they were planning to steal from. They kind of have him by the balls, and Keitel didn't want any part of it, and so the movie essentially ends with a freeze frame of the two of them about to come to blows. And I didn't really care for that, and I'm sure that played well in the late 70s. This kind of
Look at him.
racial tension kind of thing. But as far as unions go, this is a good one. This is a good example of some of the positives and negatives of the union movement and motivations and the corruption and all the things that go in and out of it. So I recommend checking it out if you've
Worth
never
a
seen
watch.
it.
I have not. We got a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. Fun fact, it was a very tense shoot because Richard Pryor, Yaphet Kotto, shout out Yaphet, and Harvey Keitel argued constantly. There were fights, verbal abuse, walk-offs, and Mexican standoffs.
Why do you got to bring the Mexicans into it?
According to Paul Schrader, Pryor punched Keitel and hit Kotto with a chair during filming.
I would believe it.
I mean, I think Harvey Keitel kind of had a reputation for being a hothead too. So you get the two of them in a room, and there's no telling what sort of substances Richard Pryor was on in 1978. That's just a recipe for fireworks.
Oh, sure. That would be a great documentary in and of itself to see the behind the scenes.
Yes.
Yeah, would love to see that. So yeah, that's Blue Collar. That was going to be Lee's, and the other movie that we were going to discuss was Todd's film, which was Sorry to Bother You.
Sorry to Bother You from 2018. Good movie. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I remember it well. Lakeith Stanfield.
Yes, directed by Boots Riley. It's set in an alternate present-day version of Oakland, and telemarketer Cassius Green discovers a magical key to professional success, propelling him into a universe of greed. Got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's directed by Boots Riley, who a lot of people know from his music work. He is the vocalist for The Coop, as well as a group, kind of hip-hop group called Street Sweeper Social Club.
Okay. Yeah, this one was one of those movies where the the trailer leads you to believe it's about one thing. And for the first part of the movie, it is that thing. But then the turn gets completely surreal, completely off the rails, but has a very powerful message about a worker uprising and the mistreatment of workers on a very, very meta scale.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy. Who's the female in it? Is Zazie Beetz?
I think it might be Zazie Beetz.
Yeah,
I'd have to look
okay.
to make sure, but that sounds right.
Yeah, I'm going on my foggy memory from Jesus Christ, 7 years ago?
2018, 7 years ago, and a lot of people cite Boots Riley as a one-and-done kind of director. He had this one hit, and then it's been 7 years, but he does have another movie in production.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Neat. Yeah, that one's interesting. You're in for a wild ride if you've not seen it. Check it out. What was the other thing? Lakeith Stanfield puts on a white guy voice.
Yep.
When he's doing his telemarketing. Now, it's not his voice though; it's a dub over from someone else.
Oh, really?
Is it like David Cross or somebody?
Oh, I think you might be right. I can't remember that. That's
again.
awesome,
I'm going 7 years on my memory, so if I'm wrong, forgive me. But yeah, I think there was
if Todd was here, he could probably tell us.
Well, I think there was kind of a stink about that because everyone was like, "Well, Lakeith Stanfield does a pretty good white guy voice, so why didn't they just let him?" But I think that they wanted to ratchet up the strangeness of this movie even further by doing that. So yeah, good movie. Check it out.
Fun fact?
Yeah.
Donald Glover originally planned to play the lead role of Cassius Green, but was unable to do so due to scheduling conflicts with Solo, a Star Wars story from 2018 as well. He recommended his Atlanta co-star Lakeith Stanfield for the role.
Thanks for that great review, Todd.
Yep.
Appreciate you coming, buddy. I'm going to go ahead and go first because I think that my movie is the popcorn version or at least out of the 2 remaining movies to discuss. I want to end on a bigger, heavier note with yours. So I did Norma Ray from 1979. It's directed by Martin Ritt. This is the film that Sally Field won the Academy Award for Best Actress in a Leading Role.
Yep.
It's the "You Like Me, You Really, Really Like Me" speech. It also stars Beau Bridges, Rob Liebman. Pat Hingle plays her father in the movie. You might remember Pat Hingle as being Commissioner Gordon in the Tim Burton Batman movies. Also, Grace Zabriskie is in it as one of the mill workers. She plays the crazy mother in Twin Peaks.
Okay. Gotcha.
So a lot of faces that you're like, oh, that's so-and-so from so-and-so. All right, so Norma Ray, like a lot of her family before her, Norma Ray works at the local textile mill where the pay is hardly commensurate with the long hours and lousy working conditions. But after hearing a rousing speech by a labor activist, Reuben, played by Ron Liebman, Norma is inspired to rally her fellow workers behind the cause of unionism. Her decision rankles her family, especially her fiancé, Sonny, played by Beau Bridges, and provokes no shortage of contempt from her employers. I say this is the popcorn version because a lot of the heavy emotional notes are kind of glossed over.
Right.
It's not a huge spoiler, but her father also works in the mill, the textile mill. And there's a scene, and they set it up from the very beginning about how, you're going to die in that mill. You've worked too hard. You've worked too long. And of course, in the middle of Norma Ray participating in this effort to form a union, she's kind of doing it, but she's not fully vested in it. And so naturally, you've got to have the catalyst to really drive her all the way home. And that is her father is like working the line, and he starts to feel like his arm goes numb a little bit. And he's like, I'm going to go ahead and take my break now. And of course, the foreman's like, no, you're going to get your break in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And
Get
then,
back to work.
And then, of course, he has a heart attack, literally falls over into a pile of fabric.
Yep.
And but it's so poorly done in that he dies. Hard cut, next scene, funeral, hard cut, next scene, aftermath. And it's like they don't milk it for what it's worth to really make you understand this is the galvanizing moment that makes Norma Ray decide that she is going to see this union thing through to the end, no matter what the cost. That's my one gripe about the movie. I think it's fine. It does a good job of giving a casual observer kind of an overview of what people who are trying to form a union are up against. And it's got the very famous scene where she's standing up on top of the sewing machines amidst all of the workers, and one by one they start turning off the machines in very loud mill.
They have to, because you can't hear anything. Right. It's completely cacophonous. I worked in a cotton mill.
Really?
In 1998, I worked at Beacon Mills in Westminster, South Carolina for the summer. And I've got a couple of very brief anecdotes about it. One, those machines, those weaving machines, are super loud and super powerful. One day, a squirrel ran in off of the loading dock and was like spastic, like squirrels are, and ended up running into one of those weaving machines or looms, and just immediately like red mist.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. And the other thing was, my job was a filling hauler, so I had to haul these buggies of literal buggies, giant bins on wheels full of spools of yarn to the different floors for different stations. And I had to take an old elevator between floors. And the elevator was so old, it was made of wood. It was like wooden slat freight elevator. And it would stop in between floors sometimes.
Jesus.
One time I got stuck in between floors in this cotton mill for, I'd say, I might be exaggerating slightly, but it seemed like about an hour before they were able to get the thing working again. It's completely pitch black. It's dank. It's nasty. It's dirty. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. A fun fact from Norma Ray.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Sally Field did the film against Burt Reynolds' advice because they were in a relationship.
That tracks. I could see Burt Reynolds.
Hey, you don't want to do that. You don't want to mess with those commie movies. And afterward ended their relationship.
Oh,
So
my.
this movie split up Sally Fields and Burt Reynolds.
Jeez. Okay, then. Check it out. It's okay. It's fine. It's
I like your assessment of it being a popcorn labor movie.
yeah.
Because-
It's not. It should be heavier than what it is.
And they do take things very lightly.
Yeah. There's comedy in this movie. She's promiscuous. She dates a lot of people. She has kids from different fathers, and so she's not an angel. You know, that's but at the same time, all that's kind of, well, I don't really understand
What that has to do with
what
the
it has
story.
to do with anything. Yeah. And then her relationship with Beau Bridges is kind of, it seems very superficial. So there's a lot in the movie that I think could have been handled differently for a more impactful movie. That said, I think it's truly a popcorn flick. You can watch it and be in and out without any true heartbreak. And you might have your opinion change one way or the other about unions, but maybe not. I don't think you're going to think on it too much.
Well, for my movie, I didn't have any popcorn because we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
We're talking about The Grapes of Wrath, the aforementioned masterpiece from 1940, directed by John Ford, who we spoke about quite a bit on our Golden Age of Westerns episode. Although I realized in my very limited research on this movie that at the time in 1940, the early 40s, the producer of the movie was considered more of the head honcho of a film than the director.
Okay.
In fact, the equivalent of Best Picture at the Academy Awards at the time was called Most Outstanding Production. And on the poster, for most of the posters for Grapes of Wrath, they list the producer's name above the title instead of John Ford's name.
Okay.
Which it's like something Zanuck. Anyway, we got a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes here. And basically, it's the story of an Oklahoma family driven off their farm by the poverty and hopelessness of the Dust Bowl. They join the westward migration to California, suffering the misfortunes of the homeless in the Great Depression. Starring Henry Fonda as Tom Joad and the great Jane Darwell as Ma Joad. Her performance is outstanding. To the extent that she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for this movie. She's the glue that holds the family together and keeps them going throughout all of this misfortune that they encounter along their journey west. And at the end of the movie, she gives a very poignant speech about, it's called the We Are the People speech, about, she's referring to Okies, but really anybody who perseveres through harsh times. And we also have John Carradine showing up as Jim Casey, who is
Why the long face?
exactly not John Barrymore, John Carradine, another nepotism progenitor.
Yes.
Who he's a former preacher who has lost his faith, who Tom Joad encounters on his way home from prison, and he kind of falls in with Tom and accompanies him on their travels. For the plot of the movie, I thought that since we're kind of shorthanded today, I would bring in a guest to read the synopsis. It's a friend of the show, somebody who's kind of familiar with the era and the folk of the time. It's Smokey Joe. Good old Smokey Joe. It's good to see you, Shawn.
Thank
How you been, boy?
It's been too long.
Well, we're talking about the Grapes of Wrath, and they never actually say that particular line in the film. They do talk about grapes, and there is some wrath, but they don't talk about grapes of wrath. However, old Tom Joad got out of the pen and starts hoofing it back to his folks' place in Oklahoma. On the way, he runs into Jim Casey, used to be a preacher, baptized Tom once, but he gave up preaching because he couldn't make no sense of it no more. They head over to the Joad farm together, only to find the place empty. Just old muley graves hanging around like a ghost, telling them how the landowners run all the tenant folks off and brought in them big old tractors to knock down the houses. Tom makes it to his uncle's place and meets up with Ma, Pa, and the rest of the kin. Turns out the whole family's fixing to head west to California, hoping to find work and a better life. They load up what they can into an old jalopy they rigged up like a truck. Casey decides he'll come along too. That road west, Route 66, don't give nothing easy. Grandpa don't even make it far, dies early on. Later, they meet a fella heading back from California who tells Pa there ain't no work out there, just more folks starving and fighting for scraps. Grandma passes too, right as they cross into California, and Tom's brother Noah just kind of wanders off, don't say much, just disappears. They roll into a camp full of other broke folks just like them, ain't no jobs, no food, nothing but dust or trouble. Connie, the fella married to Rose of Sharon, she's pregnant, he gets spooked and runs off. The law don't like anyone stirring things up. When they see a fella trying to organize the men, trouble brews fast. The Jodes hightail it to another ranch called Keene, where the only store in town charges way too much. Tom starts nosing around after he hears folks talking strike. He sneaks off to a meeting out in the woods, but the guards busted up. They kill Casey right there. Tom, acting on instinct, kills one of the guards trying to defend himself. Tom takes a bad hit to the face, gets cut up real bad. But now he's easy to spot. The other family hide him when the law comes a-snooping, and they manage to pull out of there quiet-like. After driving some more, they end up at a government camp called Weed Patch. Not that kind of weed, Shawn.
Oh.
Not like you were hoping. I know. I saw you over there. I saw your eyes perk up. It's clean. It's got toilets and even showers. The kids ain't never seen no running water like that before. First time young'uns seen such a thing as a toilet. One Saturday night at the camp dance, some fellas show up trying to stir up trouble again, hoping to give the cops a reason to storm in. But the camp men were ready for it. They stop the fight before it even starts, and the cops leave empty-handed. Tom's seen enough now, things gotta change. When the law comes a-sniffing around again, looking for who killed that guard, he knows he can't stay. He tells Ma he's going to keep Casey's spirit alive, fight for the folks like them, for what's right. He slips off into the night, and Bruce Springsteen wrote a song about him. As the Jodes hit the road again, worn and worried, Ma tells it plain, folks like them, the poor, the beaten down, they ain't gonna disappear. They keep going, no matter what. And that, my friends, is the story of the Grapes of Wrath. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, thank you, Smokey Joe. We do appreciate you being here, and it's very fortunate you happen to be around since two of our guests were not here today. Thank you. No problem, bud.
Thanks, Smokey Joe. It's been too long. Yes, you mentioned this Bruce Springsteen song, and then covered also by
Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
It's the same bones are there, but the Rage Against the Machine song version goes much harder, as you would expect.
Well, yeah.
Fun fact, prior to filming, producer Daryl F. Zanuck sent undercover investigators out to the migrant camps to see if John Steinbeck had exaggerated about the squalor and unfair treatment of the workers. He was horrified to discover that Steinbeck had actually downplayed what went on in the camps. So it was actually far worse.
Yeah.
And it's far worse in the book than it is in the movie. That's another thing that the movie does, is they sanitize a lot of the stuff for the audience, which is understandable considering the time. Also, it's the 1940s, so America gets a little bit of a reprieve from hating communists because of World War II.
Right.
In World War II, we had to rely on the communists to help us defeat the Nazis.
Yes.
And so that's the only reason this movie was able to be as successful as it was with communist themes, is because we weren't focused on hating communism as much at the time.
Yeah, we were hating on Nazis.
And they also changed the order of events around a little bit, and the ending of the movie is a little bit more happy than it was in the book.
Yes.
Otherwise, pretty straightforward and just monumental. It's very interesting that in the scenes in Oklahoma, you hardly see any of the land. It's all focused on the people and the squalor. But when they get out to California, you see these sweeping landscapes and lush agricultural fields, and the juxtaposition of those two things is pretty awesome. Also, you have them traveling down Route 66, and they spend some time in New Mexico. They go through, I think, Taos, New Mexico, which is pretty cool. Great movie. I posted my review on Letterboxd and then on Facebook, and my mom commented, the book is pretty good too.
Yeah, this is your first time out with the movie, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
It's bleak.
It is. It's depressing, but definitely worth it. But the things that they were dealing with were depressing.
Yeah, totally.
It was the Great Depression.
Makes sense.
They called it that for a reason.
It tracks. But yes, you've got one of the early foundations of looking out for the lesser man, the worker, making sure that the worker is cared for and properly represented. So
like you were saying earlier, the people in Harlan County, their clothes and the conditions that they lived in were almost anachronistic to the 1970s, and they actually looked more like the characters from the 1930s in Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah, it's shocking. It really is shocking. And heck, like I said, I've made a pass through various parts of West Virginia, and to see them modern day, it's like you're walking back in time, which is sad and unfortunate. But
it's a problem that we can't ignore.
No.
Maybe we can, because we have for a
some
very
people
long
have,
time.
but it's a problem I can't solve.
Right.
I don't know the solution to that, but it is very much a reality for a lot of people, and that plays into what we were talking about earlier, where a lot of these union movements are life and death scenarios for a lot of these people, not just a matter of living a more convenient lifestyle. It's not about that for a lot of these folks,
right?
Which
it's about survival.
Yeah, exactly. So, good job, man. I'm glad you picked that one. That one was it was either going to be that or On the Waterfront in terms of the heavy hitter type movie.
Well, I was just looking at, like, you do a Google search, movies about the labor movement, movies about workers' rights, and this one kind of stood out as a glaring example of a classic film I've never seen.
Yeah, good.
So I went for it.
Grapes of Wrath was one of those AFI Top 100 that came out in like the end of the 20th century. I watched a lot of those movies trying to educate myself in film, and that was one where I was like, damn, this is heavy.
Yeah, it's a real one.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, good job, Grapes of Wrath. And I guess that's going to stick a fork in the labor movement for us.
We did our best.
We did our best with what we had. Again, I wish that our other guests could have made it, but they can't.
But thanks to Smokey Joe.
Thanks to Smokey Joe for stopping by and taking care of us. I believe he's left a bag of weed by the front door.
Duty free.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Next time we're going to get together in a couple weeks, I think we're going to do a watch party.
Woohoo!
But we're not going to tell anybody what it is. You've got to tune in. This is one from you, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've not seen the movie.
I am itching.
I can't wait to check it out.
Check us out on social media.
Follow us on social media. We're Cinema Chop Shop everywhere except for YouTube and Blue Sky. We're Cinema Chop Shop Podcast. Rate, review, subscribe, and do all those things. Love your neighbor. Tell people you love them. Do kind things for people, and help out the less fortunate.
And try not to get too bogged down in all of the muckety muck right now.
Oh gosh, there's plenty of muckety muck to get bogged down in. Just look on the bright side. And
remember
to
watch, chop, retrofit.